Steve Mielhausen here at UFC On Fox 2. We're here with UFC President Dana White. Dana, I like the shirt there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Where'd you get it from?
Brazil.
Chael Sonnen walked out with the so-called middleweight championship. How did he get by?
How what?
How did he get by?
By what?
How did he get by you with the title?
Yeah, I don't know where he got that belt. I think it's one of our replica belts, but it's Chael Sonnen.
Now let's talk about the card here. You know, the first card that happened in Anaheim. What are the differences between this card and that card and this card coming up?
Ask me that again.
The differences between the cards, production-wise, announcing-wise. What's going to be the differences between that card and this card?
Well, in the broadcast, I was in the first up at the big desk for the first one because it was our first ever, kicking it off. On the desk this time, we Kurt Menefee, Randy Couture, and Johnny Bones Jones. The difference between the last show and this show is that what people have to understand is that first show was David Hill said, we didn't have a deal till January. Let's throw a big party, let's kick it off, and we'll do the heavyweight championship on Fox. So we did it. It was one fight, and unfortunately it's one of those things when you have live fights. Yes, we had a minute of fighting and an hour of talking. This second fight on Fox will be stacked with fights. It'll be 2 hours of nonstop fights.
Now, what happens if the fight's end early? What is your game plan?
We'll slide other fights in there.
Now let's talk.
It'll be just like any other UFC event you've watched.
Okay, now let's get to the main event, Rashad Evans, Phil Davis. A lot of people think Phil Davis is usually a mild-mannered guy. See the press conferences, he's seen the conference calls. He's a little more, get more into the trash talk. Is that what you like to see out of the guys, is to hype up the fights a little more?
I like to see the guys act like whoever they are. I don't ever ask anybody to, listen, we need some hype for this fight. I need you guys. Never done that in 10 years. Whatever their personality is or whatever their style is, that's their thing. I think it's one of the things that makes this sport so interesting is you have so many different characters with so many different personalities. And, some people like the trash talk and all the stuff that goes on. Some people like the respectfulness and the whole martial arts side of the UFC. So whoever they are. I don't ever get involved in that.
Are you a fan of it, or do you just be like, do what you got to do and whatever?
Yeah, I mean, if you got two guys, listen, I'll be honest. It's very rare when two guys really hate each other in the UFC. When they do, it's kind of fun and exciting. It gets you kind of pumped up. But I get pumped up for the fights that are very respectful, too. For instance, Dan Henderson and Shogun Rua couldn't have been more respectful to each other. And that fight was a war. So it doesn't matter how the guys act. I don't ever tell anybody. And the way that I am with fight fans, of course, I want everybody to be a fan of the UFC and want them to watch it and stuff. But you get these people that bitch about certain cards and everything else. You never hear me going, well, here's why you should buy this. If you don't want to buy this card, don't buy this card. I got 30 more the rest of the year. You can watch that card, whatever you want to do. But I'm never going to tell a guy to act a certain way because I think more people would watch. You're either a fan of fighting or you're not. I don't ever play into that stuff.
You talked about the main event. Rashad, if he comes out healthy and wins, he will face John Jones. What about Phil Davis? A lot of people said you weren't too sure, but what if he wins in the first round in like 2 minutes?
If he wins in spectacular fashion, I'll talk to Davis after the fight and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Chael Sonnen said, I don't know about Anderson Silva. He said during a conference call that he had talked to Joe Silva 4 times about offering to fight with Anderson. Anderson didn't want to fight Chael Sonnen. Is this going to happen if Chael wins?
Anderson Silva was injured and is recovering from his shoulder injury. That's 100% true, 100% legit. Nobody fakes an injury in the UFC. If you call and say you're injured, we fly you to Las Vegas. You see our doctors and we find out what's wrong with you, and then we go from there. So it's not true. Nobody has ever faked an injury in our UFC over the last 10 years, meaning the Zuffa era.
I had a lot of things on Twitter on my radio show about what Chael Sonnen and CM Punk, a lot of rumors floating around. And do you know anything on the update on that situation? Because it was saying that Chael talked to you guys had confirmed it, they had talked to Vince McMahon, it was okay, and then now it's not okay. And on their side, have you have any update on that? Or
the last I heard, Vince shot it down.
Have you talked to Vince McMahon?
Oh, I don't care. CM Punk walks out with him or not, it doesn't change my life. I mean, Chael is friends with him. He wanted to walk out with Chael, and Vince wouldn't let him.
Now let's talk about a couple of issues. I talked to Bjorn Rebney from Bellator on Monday, and he had said that, with the fighter pay story with ESPN, that they had tried to contact them. They didn't want to do it. They flew to Atlantic City for one of their shows. He told me once they got there, they wanted to start talking about you guys and talk about the fighter pay and what they're comparing, trying to badmouth you guys.
Right.
Why do you think they're still doing it? Because that's a lot of topic of why are they doing this, or why are they going to Bellator?
Right. What I'm happy about, the only thing I can say about this is that we filmed them filming that report. You know what I mean? So I really don't have to say the interview that Lorenzo did, the raw, uncut, speaks for itself. I mean, if you watch that interview, who looks uncomfortable? Lorenzo or the interviewer? The interviewer.
Now, have you talked to ESPN since then?
Yes.
What did they say?
You know, we talked to the top guy over there, and we've been going back and forth. And you know, you're talking about two companies that are very passionate about what they do. I'll use passion as the word. So I think that, I'll tell you this, for what it's worth. John Skipper over at ESPN has been very nice, accommodating, and fair to us, in my opinion, in talking to him in conversations over the last several years. But there is absolutely no doubt that they came out with an agenda to attack us in that story. And if you watch the story that they produced, it leaves people to believe that we're doing bad things over here, when really this is the most amazing sports story in the last 50 years, what we've really accomplished and achieved here. And I'm just, like I said, how I started this answer off with you, I will say again, I am so happy we filmed it and put the unedited raw footage up.
Will you ever appear on ESPN programming again?
Who knows? Who knows? Listen, they don't need me to appear on ESPN. As long as our fighters can appear on ESPN, they deserve the respect to be on ESPN. You know, if they're the worldwide leaders in sports, right, that cover everything that is sports, how do you deny us? How do you deny these athletes that have trained since they were little kids, work as hard as they have, and have millions and millions of fans all over the world? If you're ESPN, how do you deny them that access?
Because a lot of topic, you know, from people I've been talking to and just kind of hearing things on Twitter and, you know, in the underground forums and stuff like that, is that everyone's like, oh, it's ESPN, you know, to be mainstream, you need to be on ESPN. I think you guys have done pretty well in the last 17 years without ESPN.
Or anybody else. You know what I mean? It's not like people were jumping out of their seats and jumping in and trying to help the UFC get to where we are. You know, none of the media helped us fucking getting here. I mean, if we didn't get that television show that we bought our way onto Spike TV, we paid for it, none of this would have happened. You know, the Fertitta brothers put up $10 million when they were already 30-something million in the hole to put that television show on Spike, which was essentially a time buy. None of this would have happened.
A lot of people are talking about the SOPA and the PIPA and your guys' stance on it. You guys have faced the same stance as also the WWE. You know, a lot of people are like, well, some people I'm seeing are like, well, why are they supporting this for? You know, I think it's a good idea because it's like it's the old saying is, if someone's trying to take money from me, I'm not sure until I want them to go to jail.
Yeah, it's one of these deals where, you know, is the bill perfect? No, nothing's ever perfect. But what people have to understand is, and they don't look at it this way, if you go in and you steal a watch in a store, right, you're going to get arrested. You're going to be prosecuted. And people will look at you and go, that guy's a fucking thief. Walked into a store and stole a watch. But if you steal pay-per-views, and these are the same people that are on the internet bitching that we're not paying our fighters enough, okay? The same guys on the internet saying we're not paying our fighters enough but want to steal pay-per-views. It's the same thing. Music, movies, the list goes on and on. And, you know, it is what it is. And one of the things that's happened over the last couple of weeks with all these hackers going in and hacking all these websites, a bill that everybody was terrified of and was dying might turn around now because you guys just started acting like terrorists. And one of the things that I always say about the internet, and it's the truth, it's a place where cowards live. It's a lot easy, it's very easy to sit in your house and say things about people and do dirty things about people, you know, when you're hiding in your house behind a keyboard, you know. And there's a lot of people, man, a lot of people that are terrified of the internet. I'm not one of them. They don't scare me.
Two final questions, and thank you for the time once again. I want to talk about the steroid issue, you know, in Strikeforce with Cyborg and King Mo. You guys came out with a statement last week I had read, and then people are like, well, why didn't they do this earlier? Why are they going with it now when, you know, this should have been done a long time ago? What do you say to people that, you know, are like, well, you're taking a proactive stance now when stuff's already happened?
I say, shut your face. You know what I mean? It's like, no matter what we do the right thing. You should have done it before. We do something. I don't give a shit what they think. The bottom line is we're the most regulated sport on earth. If every other sport out there had to go through the drug testing and steroid testing that our athletes do, there would be no other sports. We're the most regulated sport on earth. And now we're taking it another step to try to get guys on the lower level so that people see, you know, don't do this stuff. And the reason is for the athletes themselves. Once you start taking steroids and you're 21, 22 years old, what happens is your body stops producing testosterone. So eventually you have to get off this junk, right? And now you're destroyed. Physically, mentally, emotionally, when you were a talented, gifted athlete that could have jumped into UFC and fought here for years. You don't need this junk. And most guys do it to get an advantage or an edge, or other guys do it because they think everybody else is doing it. You know, so hopefully by taking this position now, we can, we can stop guys from doing this young.
I know you guys work with the athletic commissions. Has anything been talked about doing random testing year-round so this doesn't become more of a prevalent issue?
Yeah, that's up to the athletic commission. You know what I mean? You know how much shit I deal with on a daily basis? You know how much stuff I get thrown at me? You know, we're the most regulated sport on earth. Every time these guys get tested for drugs, the government is testing them. You know, we took this extra step. You know, everybody wants, I don't know what else we could do. Not running around every day testing 375 guys for steroids. You know what I mean? We're running this business and building this sport at the same time. I think what we've done is phenomenal, considering the fact that the government tests them for drugs.
Now, the final question. I know you're a big-time boxing guy, and so am I, a boxing historian. This whole situation with Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, what are your thoughts on this whole situation? Do you think the fight will finally happen? Because it's looking like Pacquiao saying, oh, I got $40 million a fight fee, and I don't want to take that, and then they're going back with, I'm going to take this, I'm not going to take this. What do you make of that whole situation, and what will be the final conclusion in your mind?
It's disgusting. It's boxing. You know what I mean? It is what it is. You know, if there's ever a fight in the history of the world that deserved to be 50-50 split, it's this one. Both these guys are major superstars. It's a fight that all the fans want to see. They're going to make a shitload of money, not only in pay-per-view, but in the gate alone will be huge, you know? Shut up, you two. Fucking get this thing going. Fans want to see it. I want to see it. Just get it done. Just get it done and make it happen. And if it's a great fight, they might get 2 or 3 out of it. You know? Just do it.
Who wins?
I'm a Pacquiao guy. You know, I think Pacquiao has the perfect style for Mayweather. He's a counterpuncher. He's fast and everything else. And I think that a lot of people now are looking after that last fight that Pacquiao had and be like, oh no. But that Marquez matchup is tough for him, man. Sometimes, you know, matchups are tougher than other fights. But it's interesting. I mean, listen, Floyd Mayweather's a talented guy. He's one of the best ever too. So it's an exciting fight. It should happen. Everybody needs to cut the bullshit, cut that thing up 50-50 and get in there and do it.
So I guess we'll never see that in the UFC then, guys, going back and forth about money.
Yeah, well, you know, what happens in the UFC is everybody's already under contract. You know what I mean? Guys are already contracted to fight. There's none of this bullshit. It's one of the reasons we built this company the way that we did. People don't want to see this shit. They don't want to fucking sit around and watch for two guys going back and forth. And we, the paying customers that buy the pay-per-view, you guys are bitching over fucking $50 million?
Must be nice.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a good problem to have.
UFC on Fox 2 is coming up this coming Saturday night, headlined by Rashad Evans and Phil Davis. Chael Sonnen against Michael Bisping and Damian Maia and Chris Weidman. Dana, thank you for the time.
Thank you.